This is Connie Hawkins. Recently, the NBA has announced that he passed away at the age of 75, and as with other players who played in the 1970s, most people have no idea who he was or what he represented. In this video, I'm gonna cover his life story from the playgrounds of New York City to being a victim of the point shaving scandals in the 1960s and finally reaching the NBA. What's good, fellas? My name is Andy, and to start things off, I gotta say that Connie Hawkins is one of the most iconic figures in the history of New York City basketball. In a documentary, Coach Larry Brown has stated that Hawkins was Dr. J before Dr. J, Elgin Baylor before Elgin Baylor, Michael Jordan before Michael Jordan. That's how good he was. He was a legend in the streets of Brooklyn and Harlem. At an early age, he made a name for himself at Rucker Park, the most legendary court in the country, where many future NBA superstars grew up playing. Hawkins frequently played there, and he was a major reason why Rucker Park became a nationwide phenomenon. NBA players like Kareem, Dr. J, Wilt would all make trips there just to play, even when they were already in the NBA, because the atmosphere was incredible. Hawkins' ability to not only play basketball at a high level, but to also entertain the crowd with his high-flying dunks, handles, and passes made him the most popular player in the Harlem basketball scene. Anyway, Hawkins attended Boys High School in Brooklyn, which is now known as Boys and Girls High School. In his senior year, he averaged over 25 points per game and even scored 60 points one time. He led Boys High School to 2 titles in the New York Public Schools Athletic League in 1959 and 1960, and his great play granted him multiple scholarship offers, but he ultimately decided to play basketball for the University of Iowa. And now, this is where things start to get a bit messy. In 1961, a major gambling scandal broke out, which primarily started in schools on the East Coast. Some of them that were under investigation included Columbia, St. John's, NYU, and North Carolina State. The scandals were centered around point shaving, where basically some students or referees were offered money to control the point spread of games to favor certain bets. After the investigation was over, a total of 37 students were arrested from 22 different colleges. So yeah, this was a huge deal back then. This whole gambling scandal also led to Connie Hawkins being kicked out of Iowa before he even played a single game there. But the thing is, he was never convicted of anything. He stated that the only thing he did that was even remotely connected to this huge scandal was that he borrowed $200 for school from Jack Molinas. But Hawkins said the money was paid back to him before the scandal even broke out in 1961. Unfortunately, nobody believed Hawkins, and he ended up getting blackballed by every college in the country, and the NBA as well, which means he was pretty much banned from playing there. Then, decades later, when he looked back at this incident, he claimed that it was totally devastating. I was innocent, but no one would listen to me. And coming from a poor family, no one even thought about trying to get a lawyer to fight it. We just weren't that sophisticated. And when Hawkins was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1992, other players thought the same way too. They all believed that Hawkins was cheated out of a legitimate NBA career, and instead he finally came to the NBA when he was a 27-year-old rookie coming off of a knee injury. New evidence was also uncovered that revealed that Hawkins never knowingly associated with gamblers. He never introduced a player to a fixer, and he only made some controversial statements because he thought he'd go to jail if he didn't cooperate with the people questioning him. Remember, he was just a teenager at the time, and frankly, he was just scared and didn't know what was going on or what point shaving even meant. From my perspective, it seems like Hawkins just got socially engineered into making some controversial statements to the media, because they made him say what they wanted to hear, but when it comes down to it, I think he really was innocent and did not know he was being taken advantage of. Anyway, let's go back to 1961. So Hawkins just got kicked out of the University of Iowa, and every other college and the NBA blackballed him because they thought he was involved in the scandal. As a result, he was forced to find other opportunities to play basketball. From 1961 to 1969, he played in the ABL, ABA, and even for the Harlem Globetrotters. While Hawkins was playing for the Globetrotters, he decided to take some action. He filed a $6 million lawsuit against the NBA, claiming that they unfairly banned him and there was no substantial evidence that they linked him to the gambling scandal. I mean, it was true, there was no evidence at all. But anyway, the NBA still held out on the lawsuit for a couple of years. During this time, Hawkins played in the ABA for 2 seasons and actually found a lot of success there. From 1967 to 1969, he averaged 28 points, 13 rebounds, and 4 assists per game on over 50% from the field. Those were insane numbers, even for back then when the pace of the game was really high. He was also the MVP and led his team to the championship in the 1967-68 ABA season. But unfortunately, in the next season, Hawkins suffered a couple of injuries and had to get knee surgery. However, the good news was he reached a settlement with the NBA on the lawsuit he filed a few years back. The NBA ended up paying him $1.3 million and finally allowed him to join the NBA at the beginning of the 1969-70 season. At this point though, Hawkins was 27 years old and coming off of knee surgery, so his time was very limited. He would play his first 4 seasons for the Phoenix Suns, which were a brand new expansion team at the time. His NBA career wasn't very noteworthy, but he did make the All-Star team 4 times in Phoenix and finished up the twilight years of his career with the Lakers and Hawks. The most memorable moment of Hawkins' career was in the 1970 playoffs, where he nearly carried the Suns to a series victory over the heavily favored Lakers. Hawkins averaged over 25 points a game for that series, and at one point, the Suns were actually up 3-1 against a Lakers team that had Will Chamberlain, Jerry West, and Elgin Baylor. Unfortunately, they blew the lead and lost in 7 games. And as for Hawkins, that was his only playoff appearance as a Phoenix Sun. Like I said, his NBA career wasn't very noteworthy, and that's mainly because he entered really late and the knee surgery really shortened his career. If he entered the NBA in his early 20s like what should have happened, he could have become an all-time great. He would have had like double the All-Star appearances and way more All-NBA team selections. It's just upsetting that he had to go through all that stuff just to play in the league. Players, colleagues, coaches, they've all said that the way Hawkins was blackballed was very unfair. And it's surprising that he didn't try to get even more compensation later on. Hawkins still got inducted into the Hall of Fame a few decades later though, not because of his NBA career, but mainly because of the impact he had on basketball and the growth of the sport. He was and still is one of the most prominent figures to ever come out of Brooklyn. He popularized the sport in lower income areas and revolutionized the way the game is played today. Basketball was not just a sport, it was also entertainment, and Hawkins had a huge hand in changing how it was perceived, right from the playgrounds and parks where it all started. That's all folks, I hope you enjoyed this video on the great Connie Hawkins. I feel like after his death, not many people gave him the respect that he deserves because very few people know about his NBA career. Hopefully, I was able to share something new with you guys and maybe could help some people understand the impact that he had on basketball. He was an incredibly influential athlete. Anyway, thank you everyone so much for watching and I'll see you next time as always.